So let me talk first about these two new layers of bread around the existing regulatory sandwich. The Consumer Financial Protection Agency, Ryan will talk about a little bit more in detail about that, but what it essentially is a manifestation of Elizabeth Warren's view that through behavioral economics, that consumers cannot, even if they're given the right information, make the right financial decisions. That consumers, somebody should be looking out for consumers and making basic financial decisions for them, and that you need a strong federal regulator that will do that. And furthermore, that you need to make sure every state attorney general, in addition to this new federal regulator, is empowered to enforce that. We think it'll limit the choices consumers have, obviously. It'll reduce the availability of credit. It is a big government solution, and it is ineffective consumer protection. Second is systemic risk regulation. There's no doubt we need to get these regulators talking to each other, and that somebody should be able to see the whole picture. But what the administration has proposed is a permanent too-big-to-fail regulator with an ability to create a huge tax to fund itself. And ultimately, once you've created a bailout fund, there's the expectation that at some point you're going to use it. And that's why we oppose that. So we're not against information so government has a better sense of what's happening in the markets and connecting all the dots, but creating this new super regulator that would permanently put 20 companies on a too-big-to-fail list is not the right solution.
Just to give you a sense of what we've been doing from a broad perspective, we've mobilized our grassroots and grass tops. We've sent over 160,000 letters to the Hill on the Consumer Financial Protection Agency issue in particular. Just to give you a sense of scope, that dwarfed what we did on card check, which just goes to show how motivated people are against what they view in this area to be another big government solution to regulatory reform. Interestingly, we've done some polling, and when we ask people what they think just about the concept, knowing basically nothing about what a CFPA is, only 40% of people thought a consumer financial protection agency was a good idea. Again, the undercurrent of big government solutions being sort of a negative idea is interesting there. And when we described a little bit more about what it was, the support dropped to 30%. And then when we talked to them about solutions such as empowering the existing regulators, tough as nails enforcement, eliminating the duplication of current regulatory authority, the support for that type of solution over a standalone agency was beat out the standalone agency over 2-to-1. So just gives you a sense that this is not something, despite the clear anger in the public for what we view to be some significant shortcomings of the system, we continue to support reasonable reform, effective and modern reform, as opposed to just yet another Band-Aid solution on top of it.
Just to throw out two different statistics. Out of the Fortune 100 companies that currently exist, 18 did not exist in 1975. And in the first year coming out of a recession, normally most job growth happens in small businesses. And just to drive that point home, coming out of the last recession in 2002, 1.6 million out of the first 1.7 million jobs created were created by firms that had less than 20 employees. So based on corporate governance system of certainty that provides certainty, as well as lending practices that provide the capital liquidity that businesses need to come into existence, to expand, to grow, we've had a system for many, many decades that has allowed for creativity to come to the fore and has really concentrated on giving people equal opportunities, not necessarily equal outcomes. So what we're seeing now with some of the proposals that are out there are proposals that are really engineered to start to change that dramatically.
So I think, first of all, the purpose of the CFPA really, to expand upon what David said, was to take the consumer protection mandates of the 6 existing federal regulators and consolidate it into a single agency. And the idea there is that they're elevating consumer protection. I think we have significant concerns from a structural perspective that we'd basically be creating a new agency in addition to the 6 that exist without really addressing the reasons that those regulators failed in the ways that they may have failed in the first place. A second major concern that we have is, largely the CFPA is being touted as a way to crack down on fraudulent mortgage practices or manipulative credit card practices. But in fact, the scope of this thing would be much broader than just financial institutions. There are very, very broad definitions given to this agency in terms of defining its power, and I think the idea there is, rather than really target where things went wrong, we're just going to give this new agency as wide a jurisdictional net as they possibly can, so that if anything arises in the future, there's no problem here. But what you're bringing to the business community and to lending institutions there is a significant, uncertain, and new burdensome regulatory environment. So just to give you an example, basically, if you're engaged in financial activity, that is a trigger for making you a covered person, which means you'd be directly regulated by the new CFPA. They define financial activity, however, as extending credit in which a finance charge is imposed or in which you're allowed to pay over four or more installments. So if you think about particularly the small business community or really any non-financial business, if they allow their customers flexibility in the way that they pay, they'd be directly regulated by the CFPA. In addition, they create very large categories, so anybody that provides financial education. So any school or nonprofit organization that provides financial literacy education would be covered by the agency. Anyone that's a service provider to a financial firm, so if they provide a material service to someone that offers consumer financial products, they would be covered. So you're talking about software companies. Any retailer that offers a gift card, so stored value cards, make you directly regulated by the CFPA, so that would bring you in. So even some of your corner stores would be directly regulated. Advertising and marketing companies, as long as they're providing services related to consumer financial products. Lawyers, because they offer advice there. Utility companies, doctors, and anyone else that offers credit in the way that I had described. So I just want to really stress that this agency is not just targeted at mortgages and credit cards as they had indicated. It's much broader than that.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Consumer Financial Protections Agency and how exactly that would be defined to a regular consumer?
Yeah. The administration has proposed creating a very broad, new, powerful regulator that is supposed to protect consumers. What it really does is capture, first of all, a broad scope of businesses that had nothing to do with the financial crisis. So if you're a small business that allows your customers to pay over the course of a couple months, you will have a new regulator. If you're a doctor that allows patients to pay over a period of time, you have a new regulator. If you're a lawyer, even if you're a school that provides financial literacy classes, you have a new regulator. So it's a very broad scope, very powerful new regulator. It would have the ability to come in and second-guess individual financial transactions after the fact, and it would be a massive regulator in terms of size. But even more important, it wouldn't provide consumers with better information to make financial decisions. If you have 2 credit cards, you would still get phone book disclosures because every state would have the ability to impose on top of this new federal regulator a whole myriad of state-based regulation. So it wouldn't simplify things for you as a consumer, wouldn't provide you better information, wouldn't really protect you as a consumer. Instead, it would be a massive new federal regulator trying to second-guess what products you can buy and limit the choices you have.
At the Chamber of Commerce, what do you propose as an option against this?
We think that what consumers need is 4 things. First, they need better information, and you achieve that by having simple, clearer disclosure. Second, they need somebody to be out there going after bad actors and predatory lenders. And you can do that by strengthening existing regulators and making sure that there's an ability to really go after them. Third, they need regulators that are talking to each other and are coordinating, and we propose a system to do that through a council of the existing regulators. And finally, they need an ability to have the choices that are appropriate to them and to make those decisions. They don't need a one-size-fits-all financial products council telling them, you know, if you have a mortgage, this is the only type of mortgage we'll sell. If you have a credit card, this is the only type of credit card we'll sell. Because we each as consumers have different needs. And what may be appropriate for me may be inappropriate for you or vice versa. But we can both make smart decisions if we have the right information.
Do you think the media has given enough coverage to this issue? And do you think the media could potentially help inform consumers better in the future?
I think, you know, right now a recent survey showed that 2/3 of Americans haven't heard of the consumer. Now, given the debate over health care and everything last year, that's understandable. But interestingly enough, people are very skeptical of more big government, more bureaucracy as a solution. People want to see financial regulatory reform. They're angry at financial institutions, and rightly so. But they're equally cynical about big government solutions to this problem. In fact, the focus groups we did showed that most people would say, well, I don't want a Homeland Security style solution to this problem. And I think in the wake of TARP and the way that that was implemented, people have seen their government stepping in the economy in a massive way, and they don't like it. And they're worried that that's exactly what will be done in the name of financial regulatory reform. So I do think the media can play a big role to reach the 2/3 of people who have not yet heard of CFPA and warn them how dangerous this proposed new regulator is.
Okay, thank you very much.